that draft in '74 and figure out why they won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. So they took Lynn Swann, first-round pick wide receiver in '74. They took Louis Lips, wide receiver, first-round pick in '84. Wide receiver, Joe, 1994. You guys have a choice. I know you have some thoughts, Joe, and Mel has some history. Go ahead.
Why not take a wide receiver? It's been very good to you over the last 20 years. I really believe that this pick's either going to be Johnny Morton or Charles Johnson. I would say Charles Johnson, and I'll take this from Mel because Colorado has a great history with the Steelers. They like history.
All right, the cards at the table. Let's hope the Steelers don't buffalo us.
Boomer.
See, there's only 3 guys there, so it's a pick.
Okay, with the 17th pick in the first round, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Charles Johnson, wide receiver, Colorado. Minnesota has the next 2 choices, so they have 30 minutes on the clock.
Well, the Pittsburgh Steelers have brought Section 325 from Three River Stadium here to the Marriott Marquis. And they're excited that they got their wide receiver, and let's face it, this is a team that made the playoffs the last couple of years, had the Chiefs all but beat. But a team that really, as far as throwing the football to anything other than the tight end, they had a difficult time. The receivers depth chart, Dwight and the family Stone made some big catches down the stretch. But Stone and Graham and Ernie, one of the Mills brothers with 29 catches, that's what they have coming back. Of course, remember Adrian Cooper, one of their tight ends, has been signed by the Minnesota Vikings, the team with the next 2 picks on the board. Neil O'Donnell with a wide receiver in the first round. Mel, let's talk about Charles Johnson, a guy that beat a lot of odds and a broken home and some trouble along the way to become a heck of a kid and obviously a heck of a player coming out of Colorado.
He really did, Chris. Here's a guy that, at the beginning of the year was down a little bit, moved up steadily. I still went with Johnny Morton as my #1 wide receiver because I wanted to stick with that all year, but Morton had a great season. Charles Johnson did as well. Here's a guy that Colorado has sent 3 players in the last 2 years to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which shows that the scouts in that area have done their job. Steeler management has a lot of confidence in the ability to scout this school. You see Charles Johnson beating the Texas quarterback deep. He can run well when reverses. He's a good return man as well. He really helps out a Steeler team that has had a lot of drop passes. One thing about Charles Johnson, makes the acrobatic reception, can extend those arms and hands to make the tough catch. And that's what the Steelers have lacked. A lot of inconsistency at wide receiver. Charles Johnson fills that void. 2nd straight year, they have gone for Colorado players high. Last year, Deion Figures on round 1 came in and produced. He'll start this year opposite Rod Woodson. Chad Brown, linebacker, 2nd round last year. Year prior to that, nose tackle Joel Steed, all from Colorado. Come back and get Buffalo Charles Johnson. So you really can't argue with their philosophy. When teams get a scout that has a hot hand, it's not bad to go back to that individual.
Joe, how did you rate your receiver board? Is Johnson #1? Would you have picked him?
I agreed with Mel. I think it was either Morton or Johnson. It was really a toss-up depending upon what you were looking for. I happen to like the fact that this kid has been a fighter all his life. He has a history of fighting his way to the top. The Pittsburgh Steelers, besides that, the colors are almost similar, so he'll be used to wearing a black jersey, a little bit of a gold jersey. I think it'll work out great. I really feel like he is an excellent choice. I mean, the Steelers just have not had a lot of guys hang on to the football. That's been a problem. This kid has a chance to go in and make some plays for him, and I think step right in and start right now.
So Charles Johnson goes to the Steelers. And talk about how things change. We've done several draft shows, and we never mentioned the Minnesota Vikings because they never had any picks. Or either after the Herschel Walker deal, they were gone. The Minnesota Vikings, it's the Dennis Green show. They have 2 first-round picks coming up next. There's War Room Cam Live.
Airbags, seat belts, and anti-lock brakes, child safety seats, careful driving, and a set of Michelins.
Hi, my name is Natalie Niesner with MCI, and this is Nancy Beard, one of our MCI customers. Nancy, why did you choose MCI?
I was with AT&T, and I made the switch for the savings. It makes a big difference, and I get top-notch service.
Nancy, tell us, are you saving with MCI?
Yes, my total savings with MCI versus AT&T's Reach Out America comes to $100 per year.
She's a thrift shopper. She told me that. She shops for bargains.
I'm saving money, and I'm getting care.
So give us a call, and like Nancy, find out how much you can save by switching from AT&T to MCI.
It could happen at any time. that craving for a Wendy's bacon mushroom melt. A quarter pound of fresh beef, 3 strips of bacon, and mushrooms in a cheddar cheese sauce.
When you gotta have one, you gotta have one.
You'd be surprised what a BMW convertible is going for these days. The new 318i.
Get it moving. And the silver bullet has the taste to keep it moving. Coors Light. Naturally brewed for a taste that goes down easy. Coors Light. Keep on moving.
I got Dodger Blue coursing through my veins. Yes, sirree. I eat Dodger Blue for lunch, dinner, and breakfast. Ouch! You got some Dodger Blue in my eyes. But that's okay, because I can't get enough Dodger Blue.
Tonight, it's the Expos versus the Dodgers.
How about a little more on my pants, tough guy?
This ESPN NFL special, the 94 Draft, is brought to you by BMW, the ultimate driving machine, and by Quaker State, the intelligent oil for longer engine life.
Welcome back to the Marriott Marquis, where the first round of the draft is roaring on. Minnesota with the pick they got from Denver in the Gary Zimmerman deal. They picked 18th and then 19th. The Minnesota Vikings, like we said, they used to not pick at all in the first day of the draft, and then they have the 2-1s. They have 2-2s, so you add it all up. 4 picks in the top 52. It is their half hour, and let's check out what's going on at Vikings headquarters with our Andrea Kramer. Any word? We've heard all sorts of things. They could go receiver as we look at the Dennis Green and company. We have heard receiver. We have heard defensive line. We have heard linebacker. We have heard, well, we've heard a lot of things. Andrea, clear it up, will you?
I'll try, Chris, if I possibly can. Certainly one guy who's on the board right now who they've really liked, he's the highest rated player and a need player that they have, is Dwayne Washington, the cornerback out of NC State. You got to remember, in their defensive backfield, they have released Audrey McMillan. Carl Lee is 33 years old. Yes, they would have preferred Joe Johnson. They would have preferred their front 7 being the dominant part of this defense, but they feel that Dwayne Washington would certainly fill a need. As for the second pick, there's sort of some debate going on. Shante Carver, the defensive line coach of the Vikings, absolutely adores this guy. He's a pure rusher. He had 43 sacks in 44 games. The question is, can he be that productive at the pro level? So some question there. The other side of the ball, the guy they would be looking at would be Todd Stussy, the offensive tackle from Cal. Yes, they fortified their offensive line with Chris Hinton, but perhaps, Chris, they could add some more firepower with Stussy as well.
Andrew, what's going on, if anything, with the Chris Dolman situation? Atlanta was skeptical earlier in the day. Obviously, Philadelphia, at least to date, has not made a move. Is that dead, or the fact that you're talking about Carver, does that mean that there may be something on the burner for Dolman?
Well, the Vikings have been on the phone all day. Roger Hedrick, the team president, who is the point man for those negotiations, has been speaking to various teams. It is not dead. The point is, the bottom line for the Vikings is, we have this guy tied up until 1995, so we do not have to make a move today, and we do not have to give up any less than we feel he is worth. They feel he is worth a first-round pick, as Gary Zimmerman was worth to them last year. They feel that they do not have to give Chris Dolman up for anything less, but if it gives you an example of how they feel, the defensive line coach for the Vikings was preparing for minicamp, and he had a list of goals. The number 1 list of goals, pass the torch, meaning they do not expect to have Chris Dolman back with them this year.
Andrea, what about a couple of names that people certainly know very well? Anthony Carter, wide receiver, and a tight end from Brown University named Steve Jordan. Is this close to the end of the line? Of course. Well, I have to. Otherwise, they call me every day for more money. What's their status with the Vikes? Are they on their way out? Will they still be contributors? Do they have to take that much less money? What's up with them?
As a matter of fact, just this morning, Jeff Diamond, the Vikings Vice President of Administration, spoke to Anthony Carter's agent. They are still interested in having him back. However, Detroit has also shown interest in AC. So the Vikings are hoping to perhaps get a wide receiver later in the draft. They do, as you've mentioned, have 2 second-round picks. As for Steve Jordan, it's still up in the air. They got Adrian Cooper from Pittsburgh, a big acquisition for them, they feel. So Steve Jordan may not be starting, but certainly they'd like to have him and his veteran leadership around. But as of this point, they have not, ruled either guy out. But you got to remember one thing. They got one guy who's the most important person to sign, and that's their franchise player, Henry Thomas, looking for Reggie White and Bruce Smith money, $3.2 million. They're not going to give him that much, but they have to get him in line first.
Well, Brown didn't have that many players, you see, in the NFL, so we have to keep what we have as possible. Let's first, that Shante Carver name is very intriguing, Mel. Would it surprise you to see him go at this point?
I thought all along, Chris, he was a very underrated football player. Whether he'll go this high remains to be seen, but a guy that production-wise was outstanding at Arizona State. He has a tremendous spin move coming off the corner as a pass rusher. I think people started to look at him as a tweener, but you have Willie McGinnis, who wasn't as productive, but was the 4th pick in the draft, and Shante's still on the board mid to late first round. A guy that comes off that corner hard, was very consistent throughout his career at Arizona State in a conference, the Pac-10, that features a lot of bookend offensive tackles that this kid had to work against. You can bulk him up to around 260, 265. You could be looking at a great down defensive end in the NFL, and I think as a value pick and as a productive, everyday collegiate performer, he'd make sense at any point from this point on down the line in the first round, because you're getting production, and you're getting a guy who has intensity, and not only that, at the Senior Bowl, did a remarkable job in those one-on-one drills, getting after the quarterback, and also in the game itself. Great job with spin moves coming off the corner.
Minnesota Vikings have the next 2 picks here in the first round. They have about 3 minutes and change on this first pick. We'll be back to talk Vikes, a fast rising club.
Every time the driving conditions change, the threats to your car's engine change. Threats that can shorten its life. Corrosion, oxidation, acids. That's why today's Quaker State has engineered intelligent oil. Oil that actually senses changes in the driving environment and adapts its own molecular structure instantly. So, if the temperature changes, so does Quaker State. If the traffic congestion changes, so does Quaker State. If the terrain or altitude changes, so does Quaker State. Quaker State virtually thinks for itself to protect your engine, whatever the conditions, so your engine lasts longer. Quaker State. The intelligent oil for longer engine life.
I'm playing Pete's Comedy Pagoda tonight. I'm staying here at the Super 8 Motel. My favorite place. I love this room, don't you? Super 8 rooms are always affordable and roomy. And steamy. What a great TV. Just like mine, except this one works. 4 more hours to showtime. Okay, new joke. That's funny. No, it's not.
Super 8. 1-800-800-8000. Over 1,000 affordable, comfortable locations nationwide. Life's great at Super 8.
We are back at the Marriott Marquis in New York, where the Minnesota Vikings have, well, you can see it, just now a minute to make their first of 2 straight first-round selections. The Minnesota Vikings, a team that, and we'll talk about this shortly, you don't think they've upgraded themselves? Let's see. Quarterback in 2 years, we've gone from Rich Gannon